My name is Dr. Clifford Thompson, and I'm presently on the Board of Education. I'm also presently a sixth grade teacher this year because they needed somebody in sixth grade. So I'm a sixth grade teacher in Oakland. I've been a teacher, principal, and secondary coordinator, and I've also done 16 years at the college level as a college professor. Um, I'm presently on the board of Oakland Unified School District, and I'm running for re-election. I represent D7. That's in East Oakland. That's the furthest out east that you can go, and it goes out to the San Leandro border. So I take everything from 81st Avenue, basically, but then there's a little jog in that from 82nd Avenue all the way out to the San Leandro border. And that's about me.
Awesome.
Unless you wanted something else.
No, that's great. We'll jump into the first question. I forgot who we left off with last time.
With Megan or
Yeah, Megan, do you want to ask the first one?
Sure, I'm happy to ask it. Let me just switch my thing. Here we go. Okay, Dr. Thompson, as you're well aware, since you're on the board, OUSD is facing a budget shortfall. And to make matters worse, OUSD student enrollment is continuing to decline for a 6th year in a row. Oakland is also operating far more schools than other similarly sized districts, which is leading to inadequate resources supporting our schools. What actions would you take in a second term to address these enrollment and budget challenges?
That's a really, really good question. I just finished what's called an AB 1912 meeting with the budget director and several staff people in Oakland. And we're looking at making certain that and I would do this is what I affirm, making certain that we align everything we do with what the state has actually mandated, number one. Number two, we have to make sure that we creatively massage the budget such that we can continue to operate our schools presently. But then we have to also be creative and look where we can make any types of changes to the budget. That could be anywhere from looking where we're overspending or maybe spending out of luxury instead of out of necessity, and maybe cutting back on what I might call the parenthetic fat.
Okay. You have been on the school board, correct, since 2020?
Yes.
If there are any reflections on what you think has gone well during your term and what are things that you think maybe could have gone better, right? And essentially, why do you deserve to be reelected?
I think, what has gone well is we have refocused our attention on achievement. And that's looking at all subgroups of students, including Black students, Latino students, Asian students, lesbian, gay students, all students, disability students, everybody, making sure that we refocus our attention on academics. The thing that I did specifically in doing that is I helped to co-author a bill or resolution that would allow us to increase the A to G requirements that all of our students not only have access to, but show proficiency in achieving, number one. Number two, that same resolution actually looks at increasing the academic growth of all of the students in mathematics and also in reading. And from time to time, in order to bring all of that to reality and make people understand that it really works, I use myself as an example. And my record stands for itself. If you look at my students that I taught last year as 5th graders, and if you disaggregate the data, excuse me, and you actually extract those kids who can't speak English and therefore they can't take the test. And then if you extract the students who were special ed in my classroom, who of course, they have whatever the special ed identification is, whatever that is, they have that. Then you would find that I actually increased my growth by anywhere from 47 to 52% in only 8 months. That's why grade level growth. That's why I know it can happen. Now, our resolution only spoke of increasing growth, giving 10 years to do so. That's, and I just kind of laughed at that, really. But I said, okay, well, that's gonna, as long as we're, like I told the superintendent, as long as we're making incremental growth, I'm okay. It's when we're stagnant or we, fall back, then that's when I really have a big problem. But as long as we're moving forward, that's really okay. So, I use myself as an example. I did it in only 8 months, and I moved my class up, like I said, 48 to 52%. So I know it, and that's grade level. That's kids coming to me, as many as one student came to me as a kindergarten level. This student, of course, I can't say her name. I just use the pronoun, but I can't say her name. She went up 805%. She went to the 8th grade level in mathematics. So I know it works. I know it can be done. And it's all with the science of reading necessarily. Understanding that concept, implementing that concept, and then kids just grow like crazy.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Jessica.
Okay. So, what are things that the district needs to do in order to improve its outcomes in math and literacy? Additionally, how can OUSD close the achievement gap among Black and Brown students?
Again, and I'm sorry, I probably talked a whole lot about that a few moments ago, but again, the whole idea is embracing, using the science of reading, and that's phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, and then comprehension, making sure that, and fluency, and making sure that you implement those 5 aspects of the science of reading. That's how you really make a difference. Now, the big thing is, within all of that, is something called direct or explicit instruction. That's if you can harness that, implement that in your class, then of course you'll take off like crazy. And just as a side note, I plan to write my book soon. Well, another book. But I want to do it in education because I think it's very important for people to understand that concept. Along with that, I institute 5 pillars in my classroom, and they are relationship, communication, culture, consistency, and structure. If those 5 things are implemented, not only in your own classroom, but even in your school, you can create movement academically. Students will then begin to move up the academic ladder. So those are the things that you can actually do.
We have 10 minutes or
Okay.
8 minutes for follow-up.
So this question,
Mhm.
so understand this, about the last census, I believe there were 75,000 youth in Oakland between 5 and 17. About 34,000 OUSD, about 11,000 in charter, so you roughly have 25,000, maybe even 30,000 kids who live in Oakland, parochial school, but they're leaving the district, they're leaving altogether. The reason why that's important is because for every 10,000 of those who leave, it's about $1.8 billion over the life cycle of K through 12. We're missing about 3 of those right now, right? What would you say to a family to bring them back? And let me qualify this. On Sunday, I was with 30 Black families, upper income, middle class, upper income. Only 3 of them went to OUSD schools. So what would you say, given what you're working on right now at OUSD, to convince those other 27, those other 20,000 to come back to Oakland schools?
It's something, and I'm glad you asked that question because that's a real question that we have been grappling with at the board level. And and this wasn't discussed in closed session, so I can say this. There's something called deferred maintenance that has been going down in the amount that's allocated to each school. We know that the maintenance issue is a real problem, but in order to encourage those families to look at our school, number one, we have to do something that I told my board colleagues, beautification, number one. A lot of people don't stop to look at the inside of what's happening. They are more looking at the outside. It's almost like looking at a book, you know, you don't judge a book by its cover, you actually go inside. But a lot of people will look at the outside, let's be very honest. So my thing has been, we need to figure out how to beautify the schools, how to make the schools more attractive on the outside. And at the same time, what we have to do is look at the curriculum that we're presenting and make sure that we have embraced those things, those proven practices that will move kids along. So we're doing two things at one time, two things simultaneously. You're making sure that the building itself is beautiful and inviting, and at the same time, you're working with the curriculum to make sure the curriculum is competitive. So when kids go through the school and they are exposed to the curriculum, they are involved in the curriculum, they will come out and be as competitive as anybody else. And that's what parents are looking for. Parents don't want to send their kids to a school that's run down, number one, and they don't want to send their kid to a school that's failing them. So that's why I say you have to do those two things. You have to beautify the outside, and you have to also make sure that you have a sound curriculum for the kids to engage in. And that's how we can invite parents to come back to the district. But we have to also, a third thing, and we have to show proven practice. In other words, you have to show that if the academics that you're implementing in your school, you have to make sure that there's somebody who has been involved in academics and they've come out with a positive outcome. Positive outcome being able to go to any college they want to. Simply increase the graduation rate, as my resolution does, from 55 to 80%. Making sure that kids have exposure to and process in A to G requirements so that they can get into any college or any university that they want to. We have too many kids who are graduating from our school and they're not prepared for college. Well, we have to not only graduate them, we have to make sure that they are prepared to be persistent. In other words, stay in college and not drop out necessarily. So those are the two things that I would do, with that third thing being the cherry on top.
Yeah. Chris or May, do you guys have any follow-ups?
I had a question. You mentioned you teach a sixth grade class today.
Yes.
And your class just started probably in the last week or two.
Yes. This is
What do you think of the students, like for sixth graders, where are they in terms of math and literacy? Just kind of your take on those students just coming in this year.
To be very honest,
To be aligned with their where they should be at sixth grade.
okay. Normally at the sixth grade level, kids are supposed to be doing sixth grade work. I just finished what's called the iReady math assessment. 14 of my kids scored 3 grade levels or more below 14 of my kids. 8 of my kids scored at the 5th grade level. 3 of my kids scored at, like I said, the green. And that's grade level or above. And it's really interesting. There are 3 kids that did it, but of the 3, 2 were my 5th grade kids last year. And that's why I know my process works. I know it works. And one kid was across the hall from me, but that kid came to my class. It's called ALD, ELD, came to my class and I taught him ALD. So I know my process works because all three of those kids had me at one time last year. This year in sixth grade, all three kids are in my class. They're with me. And they're doing exceptionally well. And I say that because they're all people of color. So to answer your question, sixth graders should be at the sixth grade level, but right now students are really coming in way, way below grade level. But, and again, I might feather my own cap, I'm gonna pat myself on the back. When kids go through me, and not that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I'm pretty close to it. No, but kids do well after they have me as their instructor. Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Thompson, can you explain to us how having a high-performing, impactful teacher on the board for Oakland Unified School District actually delivers better outcomes for students and families?
There are a couple of things. Number one, having somebody who can say, I've done this. And then not only having a person articulate, I've done this, but then saying, hey, if you want to look at my past record, look at this file and see. And then it also helps because it helps to shape the conversation. Too often the conversation at the board, and I can say this at this interview, too often the conversation doesn't really deal with academics or student growth at all. It deals with, and not saying that these things aren't important because they are important. It deals with things like budget, asset management, charter matters, those types of things. And all of those are important things, they really are. But I went through this, I'm gonna digress now. I went through this program with California School Board Association, and it was getting your master's in governance. And so I decided I wanted to do this because I wanted to learn how to be a good governor necessarily on the board. And I went through the process, and what it showed was, and I've always felt this, our triangle, if we look at what we do on the board, our triangle is inverted. The point is represent the students. Our triangle is like this, and the point is down here. So we're giving less time to students. If we turn the triangle and turn it so that it's right, it'd be like this. Sure, you would have these things on this corner that you have to deal with, but 65% of your time should be, well, research has proven this, that 65% of your time should be devoted to student academic outcomes. And when you don't spend that much time on the outcomes, and this is my verbiage, you deal with the ancillary things. And those ancillary things will take up a lot of your time and create distractions so that you don't focus on the essential. So my verbiage is sometimes we major in the minors and minor in the majors. And so that's why I like being on the board, because I want to always bring the discussion back to academics. That's where we have to go. And that even answers part of your question. How do you convince those individuals to come back in? Parents want their kids to be academically sound. I have chills even saying this now. But parents want their kids to be academically sound so that they can have choices as to what they want to do.